If you lost the ability to engage your inner critic, who would you be? Okay, this is a seemingly simple question with a lot of implications, and it is the central question that I ask my guest, Dagmar, who is a relationship coach. She came onto the podcast to be coached, and she had a lot of issues with her own inner critic and how it was impacting her confidence and basically not allowing her to shine her light as bright as possible and market in the way that she needed to. So what you're going to see in this clip is I ask her this question, and this is, if you ever gone into Byron Katie's work, it's part of the inquiry process. But basically, if you lost the ability to engage your inner critic, who would you be? Who's left over? And you can see how she begins to unravel the confidence that she would actually have. So have a listen to that, and I'm going to comment on that after. It's about a minute clip on what you can do with this information, how you can apply this. Okay, so here's the clip. Check it out. If you lost the ability to have all this self-criticism, what's left over? Like, who are you without these limiting beliefs?
Well, I would be pretty awesome. I mean, I would come in very much more confident, right? Especially regardless if someone believes in what I'm doing or needs more nudge, or maybe they're not the right person. If I take that away and don't take it personally, I think that's what you're asking, right? Take away all that, I would show up for sure much more confident within myself. Would not be affected by the way that somebody's responding or reacting to and it's funny because I don't struggle with this in other areas, but with the business, because it's a baby and I've grown, you know what I mean? I started as an infant, right? It started as nothing, and then I grew into an infant. I get attached. I get very attached to it, and it becomes a personal criticism. So to answer your question, I would definitely show up a lot more. I think I would show up a lot more confident, and my energy would shift.
There's a very key piece of thing that Dagmar mentioned in this response to that original question of who would you be without your inner critic, which is I don't have this issue in my personal life. I'm quite confident. I can say what I want. I don't criticize myself. I'm not hyper vigilant on like scanning what it is that I'm saying. How am I saying? What are people going to think, etc. Like how I show up in a relationship is totally fine. But I do have it inside of my business. Okay. This is a very critical point that oftentimes manifests, especially in individuals that got into entrepreneurship later on in life. Like they didn't start out early on in their careers kind of having their own business. So I have some clients that I work with and that have also been on the podcast where they will have had a successful career in corporate, oftentimes doing and excelling in selling or marketing some other company's product. But then when they transition into their own business, whether it's coaching or consulting, suddenly there's just like massive block and they get paralyzed inner critic, imposter syndrome. Like those are generally the common ones that pop up. Now, why is that the case? Well, that's the case because when you are selling someone else's product, the worthiness of that product, the good enoughness of that product is inherently someone else's responsibility. Your responsibility is to simply go out and tell the world how great it is. So your own sense of self-worth is not actually tied to the actual product. So you can only like you see it objectively, you understand it, like you can do all the things and like you can go out and you can sell it and you can excel at that because it's a natural skill set that you have. You translate that now into selling yourself, and now you have to sell something that fundamentally your subconscious knows is flawed in some sort of way, or the perception of it being flawed in some sort of way. Meaning, the skills that I had, the objectivity that I had selling someone else's things cannot be translated into selling myself because I already have a distorted perception of myself, that there's inherently a part of myself that I do not like, I do not believe in, that I feel like needs to be fixed before I can go out into the world and sell myself and my services, right? Because it's specific to like kind of coaching and consulting. And that is where the inner critic comes in, right? And this is why Dagmar initially came to me to be coached on the podcast to like work through, well, how do I navigate this inner critic? And it's like the critical part you got to understand here is you were successful at this because it had nothing to do with you in your previous life. Now it has everything to do with you. Okay. So you can post, like I'm going to be posting more clips from this particular episode with it. If you want to see the full episode, you can just comment, full episode below. I'll be happy to send it to you. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about any of like the breakdown, I'd love to hear them so I could reply back to them. All right. See you on the next one.